Meher Baba ki jai. So let's get started. Let's start with how to love God. Ashok ji.
Yeah, Avatar Meher Baba ki Jai, Karthik. Uh, I'll start. Avatar Meher Baba ki Jai. How to love God? To love God in the most practical way is to love our fellow beings. If we feel for others in the same way as we feel for our dear ones, we love God. One, if instead of seeing faults in others, we look within ourselves, we are loving God. Two, if instead of robbing others to help ourselves, we rob ourselves to help others, we are loving God. Three, if we suffer in the suffering of others and feel happy in the happiness of others, we are loving God. Four, if instead of worrying over our own misfortunes, we think of ourselves more fortunate than many others, we are loving God. Five, if you endure a lot with patience and contentment, attempting, accepting it, sorry, it, it as His will, we are loving God. Six, if we understand and feel that the greatest act of devotion and worship to God is not to hurt or harm any of His beings, if we are loving God. Seven, to love God as He ought to be loved, we must live for God and die for God, knowing that the goal of all life is to love God and find Him as our own self. By Meher Baba, Avatar Meher Baba ki Jai. Over to
Thank
you,
you so
Karthik.
much. Thank you so much. With that, let's get to our breadcrumbs. I closed it by mistake. Hold on. Just as we wait for to come up, we are doing Lesson Humanity and the last two chapters in Lesson Humanity. So that's literally love and God, and the last one is help to others. I think that we may be able to finish both of them today, and in fact, let's try to do that. The idea is so that we can draw this to a close and continue rather start with God speaks from next Sunday. Yeah. With that being said, let me start with the chapter Love and God. And it's so appropriate that we also read How to Love God before we started. So, Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Let me start reading. Chapter 8, Love and God. There can be no greater folly than that the aspirant quarrel with another over the pros and cons of this way or that, instead of concentrating on his own onward march. One road may be steep, another full of potholes, a third torn by racing rivers. Similarly, one man may walk best, another may be a good runner, a third a fine swimmer. In each case, the things that should really count are the destination and the progress each individual makes. Why should one who runs like a hare come in the way of another who is more likely to succeed at the pace of a snail? Spiritual progress is like climbing through hills, dales, thorny woods, and along dangerous precipices to attain the mountain top. On this path, there can be no halting or return. Everyone must get to the top, which is the direct realization of the Supreme Godhead. All hesitation, sidetracking, or resting in halfway houses, or arguing about the best route only postpones the day of final fulfillment. The aspirant cannot be too alert about the path. The slightest lingering in the false world of shadows is inevitably an invitation to suffering that could have been avoided if the eye had been steadily fixed on the supreme goal of life. The best of all forces which can overcome all difficulties on the way is the love that knows how to give without need to bargain for a return. There is nothing that love cannot achieve, and there is nothing that love cannot sacrifice. There is nothing beyond God, and there is nothing without God, and yet God can always be captured by love. All other essential qualities will come to the aspirant if he follows faithfully the whisperings of the unerring voice of love that speaks from his own heart, shedding light on the path. To lose hold of the mantle of this guide is to find only despair. The heart without love is entombed in unending darkness and suffering. But the heart that is restless with love is on its way to realization of the unfading light that shines on the unfathomable sweetness of life divine. Pure love is matchless in majesty. It has no parallel in power, and there is no darkness it cannot dispel. It is the undying flame that has set all life aglow. Yet it must be kindled and rekindled in the abysmal darkness of selfish thoughts, selfish words, and selfish deeds. As it is fired anew, it bursts out in magnificent light to serve as a beacon for those who still grope in the darkness of selfishness, be that darkness deep blue or all black. So, selfishness is the primary antithesis of love, right? Selfish words, selfish thoughts, selfish deeds. Human love, regardless of its limitations, should never be despised. It is bound eventually to break through all limitations to initiate the aspirant into eternal life in the truth. Then the lover may lose his separate false self and become united with God, who is the one matchless and indivisible ocean of unsurpassable love. God does not listen to the language of the tongue and its japs, mantras, devotional songs, and so on. He does not listen to the language of the mind and its routine meditations, concentrations, and thoughts about God. He listens only to the language of the heart and its message of love, which needs no ceremony or show, only silent devotion for the beloved. This love can be expressed in various ways, all of which ultimately result in union with God. The practical way for the average man to express love is to speak lovingly, think lovingly, and act lovingly towards all mankind, feeling God to be present in everyone. Love is dynamic in action and contagious in effect. It is only the spiritually alive and enlightened who can feel the significance of the ancient adage, so cheaply bandied about by some preachers and philosophers, that love begets love. The way of love is not free from sacrifices. Just as heat and light go hand in hand, so do love and sacrifice. The true spirit of sacrifice springs spontaneously like humility and cannot be aware of itself nor reserve itself for particular objects or and special occasions. Just mark this out. Love means suffering and pain for oneself and happiness for others. To the giver, it is suffering without malice or hatred. To the receiver, it is the blessing without obligation. Just as it can never be too early or too late to learn to love for the sake of love, so there can be nothing too small or too big to be sacrificed. In beautiful words, or sacrificed for. The flow of life, the flow of light, and the flow of love are as much in the drop as in the ocean. The smallest thing is as big as the biggest thing, and the biggest thing is as small as the smallest. It all depends upon the yardstick used. The spirit of true love and real sacrifice is beyond all ledgers and needs no measure. Constant longing to love and be loving, and a non calculating will to sacrifice in every walk of life, high and low, big and small, between home and office, streets and cities, countries and continents, are the best measures man can take to be really selfful and joyful. Love is different from lust. In lust, there is dependence upon the physical object and thus spiritual subordination of the soul to it. Love puts the soul into direct coordinate relation with the reality which lies behind the form. Therefore, lust is experienced as being heavy, but love is experienced as being light. In lust, there is a narrowing down of life, while in love, there is an expansion in being. To have loved one's soul is like adding its life to your own. Your life is multiplied and you live virtually in two centers. If you love the whole world, you live vicariously in the whole world. But in lust, there is an ebbing of life and generation of a sense of hopeless dependence upon a form which is regarded as another. Thus, in lust, there is accentuation of separateness and suffering, but in love, there is a feeling of unity and joy. Lust is dissipation, love is recreation. Lust is a craving of the senses, love is the expression of spirit. Lust seeks fulfillment, but love experiences fulfillment. In lust, there is excitement. In love, there is tranquility. Divine love is qualitatively different from human love. Human love is for the many in the one, and divine love is for the one in the many. Human love leads to innumerable complications, but divine love leads to freedom. In divine love, the personal and impersonal aspects are equally balanced, but in human love, the two aspects are in alternating ascendancy. Human love, in its personal and impersonal aspects, is limited, but divine love, with its fusion of the personal and impersonal aspects, is infinite in being and expression. Pause here. Any comments, any thoughts, any reactions?
Speechless. It's the only
Yeah.
reaction.
Yes,
It's so
yes,
beautiful.
yes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yes,
Jay,
yes.
Jay Baba, there is a chapter, I think, in Discourses, wherein there are various, what do you call that, um, various uh, types of love. Physical love, if you see, is zero, and divine love is one. So, on a scale of 0 to 1, we can create it numerically. But I mean, what I mean to say is that this is very profound that they have distinguished between lust and love. We've discussed this earlier, but I'm just saying that there's a chapter in Discourses which brings out the differences between uh, or
Yeah, yeah.
or the grid
That
between.
I think this is heavily overlapping in concept and detail with the discourses chapters on love. Yes.
Yes,
But
yes.
again, this is a little more expansive and
Yeah,
it explains better also. I would believe.
no, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. It's good.
Yeah, I'll continue. If instead of seeing fault in others, we look within ourselves, we are loving God. If instead of robbing others to help ourselves, we rob ourselves to help others, we are loving God. If we suffer in the sufferings of others and feel happy in the happiness of others, we are loving God. If instead of worrying over our own misfortunes, we think of ourselves as more fortunate than many, many others, we are loving God. If we endure our lot with patience and contentment, accepting it as His will, we are loving God. If we understand that the greatest act of devotion towards God is not to harm any of His beings, we are loving God. To love God as He ought to be loved, we must live for God and die for God, and knowing that the goal of all life is to love God and find Him as our own self. So we exactly know where how to love God comes from now, right? Therefore, let us become the soldiers of God. Let us struggle for the truth. Let us live not for ourselves, but for others. Let us speak truly, think truly, and act truly. Let us be honest as God is infinite honesty. Let us return love for hatred and win others over to God. Let the world know that above everything, the most dear to our hearts is God, the supreme reality. Besides keeping God before ourselves in our daily lives and loving Him by loving our fellow men, we can love God by surrendering to the Sadguru or perfect master who is God's personal manifestation, or to the God man who is God descended directly into form. To surrender to any of these is to surrender to God Himself. This is my song. For the rich, I am the richest. For the poor, I am the poorest. For the literate, I am the most literate. For the illiterate, I am the most illiterate. Thus, I am one of you, one with you, and one in you, and we are all one. Wow, this line is amazing. Thus, I am one of you, one with you, and one in you, and we are all one. Amazing, right? Deserves highlight. Okay. To have my real darshan is to find me. The way to find me is to find your abode in me. And the only one and sure way to find your abode in me is to love me. To love me as I love you, you must receive my grace. Only my grace can bestow the gift of divine love. To receive my grace, you must obey me wholeheartedly, with a firm foundation of unshakable faith in me. And you can only obey me spontaneously as I want. When you completely surrender yourselves to me, so that my wish becomes your law and my love sustains your being. Age after age, many aspire for such a surrender, but only very few really attempt to surrender to me completely as I want. He who succeeds ultimately not only finds me, but becomes me and realizes the aim of life. The final way to realize God is to love Him and to lose oneself in Him through intense longing for union with Him. To love God wholeheartedly is to lose oneself eventually in the beloved and enter the eternal life of God. Like a tree, such love has branches, branches of wholehearted devotion, perfect selfless service, self denial, self sacrifice, self renunciation, self annihilation, and truth. In this love are embodied all the yogas known to saint and seeker. The highest aspect of this love, which surpasses love itself, is that of complete surrender to the will of the beloved. This means complete obedience to his wishes, regardless of the cost. The perfect masters are always immersed in the joy of this union with God and never can be snared in the mazes of the illusory universe. Therefore, they do not ordinarily pay any attention to the universe other than to divert the attention of humanity from the shadow to the substance.
Karthik, the previous two paragraphs, I think it's worth highlighting. The perfect,
Yes,
the way to realize God is to love Him and to lose oneself in Him through intense longing for union
yeah.
with Him.
To love God wholeheartedly is to lose. Yeah, both these are very good. Okay. Any yeah, let me continue. Sorry. Divine love makes the individual true to himself and to others. It makes him live honestly, comprehending that God is infinite honesty. Divine love is the solution to all difficulties and problems. It frees man from all bindings. It makes him speak truly, think truly, and act truly. It makes him feel one with the whole universe. Divine love purifies the heart and glorifies one's being. When one truly loves God, that love is based on the desire to give up one's whole being to the beloved. When one loves a perfect master, one longs to serve him, to surrender to his will, to obey him wholeheartedly. Thus, pure, real love longs to give and does not ask for anything in return. When the individual truly loves humanity, he longs to give all for its happiness. When he truly loves his country, he longs to sacrifice life itself without seeking reward and without the least thought of having loved and served. When he truly loves his friends, he longs to help them without making them feel under the least obligation. When he truly loves his enemies, he longs to make them his friends. True love for parents or family makes him long to give them every comfort at the cost of his own. Trust God completely, and He will solve all difficulties. Faithfully leave everything to Him, and He will see to everything. Love God sincerely, and He will reveal Himself. And as you love, your heart must love so that even your mind is not aware of it. As you love God wholeheartedly and honestly, sacrificing everything at the altar of this supreme love, you will realize the beloved within you. Wonderful. So I think this is a very good follow up to the chapter on love that we have in discourses. This extends the discussion and gets into, as I said, a more expansive coverage of the nature of human love, the distinction between lust and love, the link between love and sacrifice, and finally, the distinction between human love and divine love, and how surrender to the perfect master and God. I mean, a perfect master and or God man. is one of the ways to express divine love and get to God realization. That's the way I would summarize this chapter. Any thoughts, any comments?
Yeah, I think this is the whole essence, actually. I mean,
Yes.
on a lighter vein, just take out either a digital copy or a hard copy on your desk, and at least once in a week it has to be read, if not more.
Yes.
So
No, it's
this,
yeah, it's not even
everything is
light
there.
vein. You're
Actually,
right.
just
Yeah.
this is the nectar or the juice, of
Mm,
everything that
mm.
Baba says. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So, any other comments or questions or points of discussion? Else we go to the last chapter.
Nothing to discuss, only to implement direct.
Yes, absorb, process,
No discussion.
internalize, and implement.
Yeah, there's nothing to discuss here. Actually, it is so
Yes.
well
Yes.
said by
Yes.
Baba. Yeah. Jai Baba.
Yeah.
Important thing is to try and love those people who we think cannot be loved. That's the
Yeah,
homework for today.
that's no, that's not easy, by the way. Just think about it, right? So it's so easily put by Baba, but it's actually very, very difficult to love someone who we would not love normally, or in fact have the opposite emotion for, which is hatred. Baba says even they deserve to be loved,
Yes.
and
And
we should do
actually,
it.
love is a sweetness of emotion within our heart. The subject in our head is that we dedicate that love to. Basically, there are holes to be filled within our heart that need healing for us to love universally. If we remove the person or something that we don't like, and then just be full in our own self, that's almost being like Baba. Yeah, Baba.
Absolutely.
Jevo,
Jai Baba.
Karthik, as you said, it is very difficult, but it's I think Baba has said that one has to along with love, one has to sacrifice, and I think the sacrifice is that we have to treat all others, even those who harm you, with love. That's a very difficult thing to do, but that's the prescription for being, of implementing, as Sanjay said, on the path to divine love. How do you?
Indeed.
Uh,
How do you?
I mean, how do you do it? So Baba has given the prescription.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So with that, let's get to chapter 9, help to others. This is the last chapter in part 2. So anybody is in a position to read? Norm, Sanjay.
Yeah, Baba, I'm on the road walking, so
Oh,
my
okay. Yeah,
apologies.
no problem. Anybody wants to read, please.
I can read
Uh,
if, and then later on.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, please start Ashok ji, and then Ashish, you can take over.
Okay. Avatar Meher Baba ki Jai, Chapter 9, Help to Others. On the path, the most important condition of discipleship is readiness to work for the spiritual cause of bringing humanity closer and closer to the realization of God. Enough has been done to make people food minded. Now they must be made God minded. The downtrodden and the poor must understand that from the spiritual point of view, their misfortunes and miseries can be made into weapons in the struggle for the truth. They should be helped to see that these miseries can be counted as gifts from God, and if bravely and cheerfully faced, can become the gateway to eternal happiness. Because of its paramount importance in promoting the true well being of humanity, spiritual work has a natural claim on all who love humanity. It is very necessary to be quiet, to be quite clear about its nature. The whole world is firmly established in the false idea of separateness and is therefore subject to all the complexities of duality. Spiritual workers who have to help redeem the world from the throes of imagined duality by bringing home to it the truth of the unity of all life. To review briefly the problem of the redemption of mankind as it has been set forth in the preceding parts of this work, the root cause of the illusion of manyness lies in the soul's identification with its bodies or the ego mind. Both the gross and subtle bodies, as well as the ego mind of the mental body, are only media for experiencing the world of duality. They are not the media for knowing the true nature of the soul, which is above them all. I just take a pause. So basically, uh, we can map this with the content in God Speaks. Basically, it's the moving from duality to reality, or from illusion to accepting that God is the only reality. Jai Baba. By identification with the bodies or the ego mind, the soul gets trapped in the delusion of manyness. Actually, the soul in all bodies and ego minds is just one undivided existence. But as it becomes confused with its bodies and ego minds, which are only vehicles, it considers itself to be limited and looks upon itself as being one among the many of creation. As a consequence, most souls are unconscious of their true nature. As God, who is the oneness and reality of all souls. Thus, God realization is present in them only in latent form, inasmuch as they have not yet experienced that oneness consciously. On the other hand, those very few who have cast off the veil of duality experience the soul without confusing it with any medium or vehicle, and in this experience, the soul consciously knows itself to be identical with God. In the realization of the truth of this oneness, life finds freedom from all limitation and suffering, for it is the self affirmation of the infinite as infinity. In this state of spiritual perfection, the ego life has been finally and completely surrendered in the experiencing of divine truth. God is known and affirmed as the only reality. Karthik, can I request you to underline or highlight the last line? God is known and affirmed as the only reality. I think it's quite profound and it has a tremendous meaning. To realize God is to dwell in eternity. It is a timeless experience, but spiritual work concerns itself with souls who are caught in the complexity of creation, which is knit by time. Therefore, spiritual workers cannot afford to ignore the element of time and the importance of its flow in creation. To ignore it would be to ignore the spiritual work itself. The task for the spiritual workers is to help in the universal dispensation of truth to us suffering humanity. They have both to prepare humanity to receive this truth and become established in it themselves. It is extremely important to remember that in helping others leave behind the illusion of duality and attain spiritual freedom, it is necessary to live and act constantly in the principle of unity. The spiritual worker will be working for those who are inclined to create divisions where they do not exist and who will allow him to him no respite to recoup it himself. The minds of people have to be purged completely of all the forms of selfishness and narrowness if they are to inherit the life in eternity. It is by no means an easy task to persuade people to give up these traits. It is not by accident that people are divided into the rich and poor, the pampered and the neglected, the rulers and the ruled, the leaders and the masses, the oppressors and the oppressed, the high and the low, the winners of laurels and the recipients of ignominy. These differences are created and sustained by the spiritually ignorant who are so attached to difference that they are not even conscious of its perversity. It's really profound. They've said that to move from duality to the principle of unity.
Yeah. So I have a question from the previous paragraph. So, what is the definition of a spiritual worker? Especially, I'd like to contrast it to Baba lover, right? So, what is a spiritual worker and what is a Baba lover? I think Baba lover we know, right? Baba has defined that. What is a spiritual worker? So, he is doing not just the task of making progress up on himself, but he's also due to help others on the path. So, is that the responsibility of every Baba lover, or is that a separate classification? I hope my question makes sense.
I guess it's to spread the good word is the task of every Baba lover because you're spreading uh, the truth of the universe. So, I mean, there's nothing, uh, there's no restriction. It's on you how you spread the good word, or as Baba has said that you just put my name into the ears of everybody, and thereafter the essence and his conviction I will take care. So I think if you whenever you get a chance and we can spread the good word, and as we had read in the earlier chapter, spread the divine love. I think that should be the in our subconscious mind the goal when we are interacting with people and wherever we can get chance to do that, but without getting ego or without getting you know uh, the feeling that that we are knowing something which is superior. So we have to do it with humility and selflessly is what I think.
Yeah, at a general basis, I support it, and I think I agree with you as well because that's the way I look at it. I'm looking for if Baba has defined it as to the difference between a spiritual worker and Baba lover. That's all. So, is there a distinction in Baba's classification or definition of these two terms?
I think spiritual worker is not necessarily be a Baba lover always because he is doing for the working for the universe, right? So not necessarily Baba lover, maybe higher than that, probably.
Yeah, maybe. So let's just
Hmm.
see if we find some definition somewhere and then share it with the group. Yeah. Kama, have you come across anything? Is he there in the
Baba,
call? Yeah,
a
he's there.
Baba
Yeah.
lover could be only a lover of Baba or God. But Baba has given that message of to his workers. When you get involved into activity of spreading Baba's name, form groups, and you know, as teams that you work, that there is another loaded expectation that Baba has given us. They are the people who can be called the spiritual workers. But lovers could be just lonely, isolated people. They are one-to-one kind of people. I know a few who just love God. They don't even go to. In Hamirpur, I had my math teacher who was a Baba lover, but he was never seen around temples, going to melas, and joining bhajan programs. Nothing like that. He was one to one with him. So those kind of
mm.
people are Baba lovers. Dolly says she is also like that.
Okay.
She's just sitting across.
Sure.
So, they are the lovers actually, and then of course there are people in between who are both, who are mingle people, but also spend some time in isolation. Like we have Kama, right?
Mm,
So,
mm.
and worker are the people who are busy in the organizing things, arranging programs or processions and these kind of activities, building temples, collecting funds, and those are the people whom we can I can understand as workers, and purely from what Baba's message to his workers is. Yeah, Baba.
Jai Baba,
So workers are both lovers and workers. Lovers are only lovers. So if you
Lovers. Yeah.
apply that
That's easy.
statistics, yeah, yeah.
Jai
Yeah.
Baba, I think if you make a Venn diagram and maybe the the
सर्कल से
worker.
बनेगा सर. सर्कल
Yeah, yeah,
सर्कल
that's what he
बनाना
said.
पड़ेगा, like we
Yeah.
do it in
Yeah.
statistics. Yeah, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, yeah. Sanjay ji is saying the same thing. So
Oh, no.
he's saying that there is a uh, two circles, concentric circles. Yeah.
Yeah, and also there can be a sub-circle, I mean, a smaller subset of, of Baba lovers who are also spiritual workers.
Exactly what he's saying. So there's no subcircle. So it's a concentric circle, or yeah, a circle within a circle.
Oh, yeah, yeah, okay, okay, okay. Okay.
Okay. So let's continue.
They are accustomed to look upon life as divided into separate, watertight compartments and are unwilling to give up this separative attitude. When the worker launches upon his spiritual work, he enters a field of divisions to which people cling desperately, and they can accentuate and fortify, and which they strive consciously or unconsciously to perpetuate. Mere condemnation of these divisions will not enable the worker to destroy them. Divisions are nourished by separative thinking, and they yield only to the touch of love and understanding. Person must be won to the life of truth. They cannot be coerced into spirituality. It is not enough for the worker to have unimpaired friendliness and untarnished goodwill in his own heart. If he has, if he is to succeed with this in his work, he must give people the conviction that he is helping them to redeem themselves from bondage and suffering, to realize their rightful heritage to the highest. There is no other way to help them attain spiritual freedom and enlightenment. To render spiritual help, one should understand clearly the following 4 points. 1. Apparent descent to a lower level. It may not be necessary to descend apparently to the level of those whom one is trying to help, though one's purpose is to raise people to a higher level of consciousness. They may fail to profit by what is said unless talk is in terms they understand. What is conveyed through thought feeling should not go over their heads. They are bound to miss it unless it is adapted to their capacity and experience. However, while doing this, it is really important not to lose one's own level of understanding. Approach and technique will be changed gradually as those aided arrive at deeper and deeper understanding, and one's own apparent descent to the lower level will be only temporary. 2. Spiritual understanding ensures well rounded progress. Life must not be divided into departments which are then dealt with separately and successively. Departmental thinking is often an obstacle to integral vision. If one divides life into politics, education, morality, material achievement, advancement, science, art, religion, mysticism, and culture, and then thinks exclusively of only one of these aspects, the answers that are brought to life can be neither satisfactory nor final. If one succeeds, however, in awakening spiritual inspiration and understanding, then progress in all these departments of life is bound to follow automatically. Spiritual workers will have to aim at providing a complete and real solution to all the personal and social problems of life. 3. Spiritual progress consists in the spontaneous growth of the understanding from within. Spiritual workers also have to remember that the spiritual wisdom which they wish to convey to others, is already present in latent form, and that is only necessary to assist in unveiling the spiritual wisdom in them. Spiritual progress is not a process of accumulation from without; it is an unfoldment from within. A master is necessary for anyone to arrive at self-knowledge, but the true significance of the help given by the master rests in his ability to enable another to come into the full possession of his latent possibilities. Some questions are more important than answers. Spiritual workers must not lose sight of the real work which should be accomplished. When it is clearly when it is clearly understood that spiritual wisdom is latent and all, the worker will no longer be anxious to provide others with ready-made answers. In many cases, he will be content to set up a new problem or to clarify the nature of a problem already faced. He may have done his duty if he asked someone to a question in a practical situation which that person would not have asked himself. In some cases, the worker will have done his duty if he succeeds in putting another person in a searching attitude so that he begins to understand and attack his problems along more fruitful line. The questions the worker may help to formulate should be neither theoretical nor unnecessarily complicated. If they are simple, direct, and fundamental, these questions will answer themselves and people will find their own solutions. Nevertheless, indispensable service will have been rendered for without tactful intervention. The individual would not have arrived at the solution of his various problems from a spiritual point of view. The spiritual worker necessarily is confronted by many obstacles, but obstacles are meant to be overcome. Even if some of them seem insuperable, he must help do his best to help others, irrespective of results or consequences. Obstacles they're surmounting, success, failure are all illusions within the infinite domain of unity, and the worker's task is already done when it is done wholeheartedly. Work must be performed without worrying about consequence, regardless of success or failure. One may be sure that work done in this spirit and with this understanding yields inevitable results. Through the untiring activities of spiritual workers, humanity will be initiated into the new life of abiding peace and dynamic harmony, unconquerable faith and unfailing bliss, immortal sweetness and incorruptible purity, creative love and infinite understanding. So I take a pause if anybody wants to say something or has
I
any
think
thought.
it's not a pause, it's actually the end of the
Okay,
part and the chapter. Yeah.
Kartik,
So,
allow me to add, if I may.
yeah, please.
It reminds me of a mirror, uh, mirror being our soul and covered with sanskaras or dust. So our goal is just to clear off those, the sanskaric uh, load or the sanskaric dust from the mirror and see within our souls into the internal self, into the internal soul, and try to purify and reach unity. Is what I while I was reading this analogy came into my mind. I'm just sharing with the group. Jai Baba.
So how do you clean others' mirrors? So this chapter is about spiritual work also, right?
Yes.
So
So
in this process, you're also, trying to clean others' mirrors in the process.
correct. So for that you can tell them, the benefits or they've mentioned a lot of things. The last line is very uh, relevant here. To the untiring activities of spiritual workers, humanity will be initiated into the new life of abiding peace and dynamic harmony, unconquerable faith and unfading bliss, immortal sweetness and incorruptible purity, creative love and infinite understanding. So you lead them to the path, give them a duster if required, or give them the tools which are there in or the content which is there in tags as discourses and God speaks in our other literature, or help them in the path, uh, whichever way you can, is what I think is coming to my mind. Open to others.
No, no,
I-
you're right. I think I agree with you. Uh, all the stuff is good. So I think so. Given that we've come to the end of uh, part two of discourses, the as planned will start. God speaks as the next reading. I think let's not rush into it by starting today. Let's do a fresh start from next Sunday. So we have a few minutes, a good few minutes to discuss any topic and take anything up if people desire. Or if people desire, we can even end a little early and have more of the Sunday to yourselves. So if I don't see any discussion
Yeah.
topics, maybe we can wrap a little early today and connect back next Sunday for God Speaks Directly. Both
Jai
these
Baba.
topics, like
Mhm.
Sanjay ji said, there is a lot of simplicity in what is said in both the message to spiritual workers as well as the the topic on love and God. It's more about internalization and putting it into practice. Yes, Namita, go ahead.
Jai Baba, when you recite Baba's name, Meher Baba, and in between you say Om Namah Shivaya or Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, would Baba mind?
How would you mind? It doesn't. It's all the same. But uh, uh, over time, you will realize that it doesn't make any sense doing any of the others. It's the oats analogy that Elch heard from Bob. Oats analogy.
Yeah, Baba, got it.
Mm.
Karthik, Jai Baba, there is
Yeah,
also
yeah.
a third part in the discourse, the avatarhood, uh, which you can either
No, no,
read.
that's the third part. We are not doing the third part.
Okay.
Yeah. So the reason why we took part two was part two has specific topics which extend the understanding for discourses. But I have some other thoughts that I wanted to discuss with Kama offline as well on how we can extend our learning process and recording process. Maybe at some time I'll pick his brain on that. Any other points of
Yeah.
discussion, general feedback on anything we can talk and then wrap up so
Yeah.
that we can get more time to yourselves and Baba.
Jay Baba, I just wanted to say that I came across this book by H.P. Bharucha, and others can read it also. It is about the last Sehwas, and that's the time when Baba, you know, it's around January 1969. It's very profound. One can read it separately. We didn't do it in a recording and group, but if you think it's good, it might take one session or two sessions. It's a small book, but I think it's written very, you know,
Okay, was there a specific last Sehwas that happened? I think the last public appearance Baba did was the celebration of the wedding, right? Uh, Shatrughan's, I mean, what's her name? Uh, Shatrughan's daughter, Kumar's daughter. I think that was the last.
Amrit, Doro and
Amrit, yeah.
Amrit.
I think that was the
Yeah, that was
last
in,
public. That was the
yeah,
last public December of '68.
that's true.
And I think, and after that, Baba didn't make any public appearances. So, yeah.
even that is mentioned or it is referred to in this book.
Okay. Okay. All right.
One, I just request others to go through it. And
Have you gone through it?
yeah, I've gone through it. I got the.
Which book?
It's Meher
A
Baba's.
booklet called The Last Sahwas. It's
Yeah, Meher
Yeah,
Baba's
yeah.
Sevas.
That is okay. That is by Barucha, right?
Yes, yes. HP.
Yeah, yeah, I have that. Yeah.
okay. So, by the way, I think,
Mhm.
Mahu, I had sent you an email a while back with a specific request. So maybe you can take a look at it. Uh, Nothing private. It's just some research that I wanted on in Persian. So when you get the time, if you can, or if you can think of somebody, you can check on that and get back when you can. And yeah, Sanjay ji, if you're
I'm
clearing
sorry,
your
I
throat,
didn't get it. Kartik, when did you send it?
long back, maybe 3 4 weeks, I will resend it. No problem. I will resend it. In
Yeah,
fact,
would you
maybe
resend
maybe
it,
maybe you
please?
missed it because I think after I sent the mail for a couple of weeks you were away. You did not join the session, so I also
Oh,
was not able to remind you. So it might be just lost in your mails, but I'll resend
correct. Yeah,
and send it to
I'll
you.
be
Yeah,
happy to. Sure.
sure, sure, sure. And I heard Sanjay ji clearing his throat, so maybe we end with a song and then we can wrap up for the day.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so I
My pleasure.
understood that
So
correctly.
what
Yes,
is
thank
the
you.
next plan, Kartik? What's the
We are
next
reading
plan?
God Speaks, Mahu.
Okay,
We are
so we're
reading
gonna
God
start reading
Speaks
that
Sunday. Yeah, next
I'm
Sunday,
coming up.
uh,
next Sunday. Okay,
which
that's
is
great.
your Saturday evening.
Of course. Thank you.
Yeah,
That's great.
yeah. Thank you. So Sanjay ji, over to you. Tar Meher Baba ki jai.
अवतार मेहर बाबा की जय। जीवन का मैंने सौंप दिया, सब भार हमारे हाथों में। जीवन का मैंने सौंप दिया, सब भार तुम्हारे हाथों में। है जी हाथों में, है हार हमारे हाथों में। There's something. हम तुमको कभी नहीं भजते, फिर भी तुम हमें नहीं तजते। हम तुमको कभी नहीं भजते फिर भी नहीं तजते, अपकार तुम्हारे हाथों, अपकार तुम्हारे हाथों, उपकार तुम्हारे हाथों, जीवन का मैं दिया सब भार तुम्हारे हाथों, हमें तुमने है फर्क यही, हम नर हैं तुम नारा, हमें तुमने है फर्क यही, हम नर हैं तुम नारा, अब है संसार हाथों, संसार संसार तुम्हारे हाथों, मेरा निश्चय है एक यही, एक बार तुम्हें पा जाऊं, अर्पण कर दूं इस दुनिया, अर्पण कर दूं दुनिया भर का सब प्यार तुम्हारे हाथों, जीवन का सौंप दिया सब भार तुम्हारे हाथों, है जीत तुम्हारे हाथों, है हार तुम्हारे हाथों, अवतार मेहर बाबा की।
Thank you so much for that beautiful rendition. Anybody else wants to sing a song, say something, share something before we wrap up? Okay, so if there's nothing else, thank you so much for being on this journey of, I think it was almost a year and 2 months where we completed Discourses and part two of Listen Humanity. So it's been slow and very productive, personally, very helpful personally, a journey of understanding discourses. So, with this and with Baba's grace, let's step into reading God Speaks yet again. God Speaks will be followed by Beams, which is an extension and especially answers and expands on specific topics in connection with God Speaks. So we will read God Speaks followed by Beams next. Yeah. So with that, we'll wrap up for the day and have a great rest of Sunday and a brilliant Baba full week coming up. Al Meher Baba ki
Thank
jai.
you, Jay Baba.
Jai
Avatar
Baba.
Meh Baba ki jai.
Jai Baba.